So I'm here to talk to you about something you just didn't know you needed, a 98-inch smart TV. So behind me is Samsung's Q80C 4K smart TV, and it is like just massive. So I want to find out more about what it's like to live with a TV that's this big, what the picture quality is like, and even how do you mount it on your wall. So let's find out whether bigger really is better. This is a Q80C model TV, and what that means is that it's the part of Samsung's 8 series. There's also a 9 series, which is sort of the top of the range. And because of that, the panel technology isn't its most advanced, but it is still pretty good, especially for a screen that comes in this size. Because if you have such a huge screen, you really don't want to see panel deficiencies coming through. So this is a QLED screen, meaning that it uses Samsung's quantum dot technology. And the real benefit of that is that the brighter the screen gets, the colors don't fade or distort. So red at a low light would also stay consistently red at a high light or a high color. So this isn't a mini LED panel. Those are the realms of Samsung's Neo QLED models. However, it does have something called a full array backlight. And what that means is that there are a whole bunch of backlights that are organized into zones behind the picture, and they can be controlled reasonably well to help sort of show where dark and light should be. There's a couple hundred backlights, although Samsung won't tell us exactly how many. And the screen itself is up to about 1500 nits of brightness, anywhere from about 1000 to 1500. Again, we don't have the exact numbers there, but still, after looking at it, it is plenty bright. And because it's such a big screen, when you have that much light coming out of it, you probably don't want it too bright because it might be a little overpowering. Because this is such a huge 98-inch screen, you're probably wondering how standard definition footage would look on this. Well, it does have a deep learning algorithm to sort of help upscale it, so those smaller pictures look pretty good on a big screen like this. Also, in terms of how quickly motion moves around, this is a 200 hertz panel. So for example, a tennis ball, when it shoots across the screen, should stay pretty clear as it goes across. Plus for gaming, it does support 120 frames per second gaming, and it has a bunch of HDMI 2.1 ports on the back, 4 of them actually, and that's what you need to get that sort of support. And most importantly, this is actually a 4K panel, so the resolution is 4K. And what that means is that your pixels on here, because it's such a big panel, actually get quite large compared to, say, if this was an 8K panel where the pixels would be a lot smaller because there's more of them. So the question I had when coming to see this TV is, could you see these sort of blocky pixels and would the image not look smooth? Look, and I think at the end of the day, it's all about, I guess, some compromises for certain things. So by having a 4K panel, it keeps the price down, because if you wanted an 8K panel like this, which there isn't, it would probably be about $100,000. So they're trying to balance things out. So we'll take a closer look at the picture quality in a sec. So this TV is about $10,000 in Australia, and you probably wonder, well, what about an OLED, for example, if I'm going to spend that much money? Well, in order to have an OLED this size, again, the technology is just not there to support a 98-inch screen, and it would be really, really expensive, probably $50,000 or $60,000. So that's why it's not an OLED. But also, because you've got such a big panel, using QLED technology, it's generally brighter than OLED, and if you have it in a big living room where there's lots of light coming in, you really do need a bright screen to punch through all of those reflections that are coming through your windows. So this actually is a pretty good technology and also keeps the price under control. If you're going to spend big on a big TV with a big screen, you're going to want lots of features. And it's good that this comes with plenty of things that most Samsung QLED TVs have, starting with its Smart Hub. And that means that there's just lots and lots of different streaming apps supported, along with other places for bringing your content into a nice, easy to manage interface. And it has your big ones like Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime, but some other ones too, like Optus Sport, as well as KO, Binge, and pretty much all kinds of others too. And for gamers like me, there's Samsung's Game Bar, and that has a lot of features. The Game Bar itself is like an overlay that you can put on top of your games and then have sort of direct control over things like the frame rate, whether you're in low latency mode, variable refresh rate is enabled, and that type of thing. Plus there's an ultra wide gaming view, which actually is kind of cool on a screen this big. Because what it does is it actually gives you an ultra wide view of your game, which is supported on a lot of PC games, and it makes the most of the width of this screen. So check that out. And if you can't find anything to watch, there's always Samsung's TV Plus. This is something that comes on most Samsung smart TVs. And what it is it's almost a network of channels. There's 91 of them, and they're all streaming channels. And they're from all kinds of different sort of back catalogs of old reruns to cooking shows to Baywatch to crime dramas. So some of the stuff is actually pretty hilarious and sort of brings back that nostalgia too. So it's great to check that out and just see what's on. Another couple of features I like are there's multi-view, which allows you to watch two things at once. So for example, you could have YouTube on one screen and maybe a game on the other, and you can maybe use YouTube to help you get some hints about the game you're playing. And also there's something called Workspace, and this is a bunch of different features that allow you to do things like operate your computer from the big TV screen. Say, for example, if you wanted to show a giant Excel spreadsheet and have a keyboard and mouse connected. And also you can connect to an external video camera option that you can get from Samsung, and then use Google Meets or Teams video, so you can do some video conferencing on this giant screen. So if you're struggling to do video conferencing on your smartphone, maybe just hit the boss up for a 98-inch smart TV at home, right? It's just so hard to tear myself away from that, especially on a 98-inch screen. And I have to say that I originally thought that maybe 98 inches would be just too big and overpower your living room. But when you actually see it sort of right here in the context of a living room, it's not as unbalanced as I thought. If you're looking at it maybe in a showroom where you have a 98-inch screen besides, say, a 65-inch, I think it's going to look pretty huge. But really, once you're in the context of your living room and everything is positioned where it needs to be, it's not bad at all. When we were shooting earlier on, we were sitting behind the camera and we were about 10 meters away, and it was easy to see the screen from there. But also, we're sitting right now about 3 meters from the screen, and you still have a 40% viewing angle, which really is quite comfortable. So this is not an overpowering TV at all. So let's go take a closer look at the picture quality. So I've had a bit of time to spend with the TV just to kind of get a sense of the picture quality. And I have to say that it's pretty impressive given that it's an 8 series, not a 9 series. Not that there's anything wrong with 8 series. I mean, it does have good panel technology, but what that means is it looks great with movies. There is a filmmaker mode that it will jump into. It is an HDR or high dynamic range panel, so you can watch high dynamic range content, HDR10. In addition to that, look, I found that colors, they can get quite bright because of that QLED technology without sort of distorting or losing their sort of color accuracy. But there's lots of good detail in the dark, so there's good color volume in darker areas where you'll still see some detail in the shadows and that type of thing, which is important, especially for darker movies. When we watch sport, there's good sort of motion tracking. There's a lot of clarity and things that move quickly. Gaming is a lot of fun, especially the 120 hertz gaming mode, which is great for fluid, fast action gaming. So we're really, overall pretty happy with what we're seeing. One thing I would say is that right up close, now you can start to see those larger pixels because this is a 4K panel. But once you move out a few feet, it really doesn't make that much of a difference at all. And like I said, overall, I was expecting maybe the things to be a little more pixelated, but they weren't, especially if you're just sitting back on a couch a couple of meters away. And I do suggest that you don't look at it from a few inches away like me. I mean, that's the whole point of having a 98-inch TV anyway, right? So you can sit back on your sofa, from a far distance away and really just take it all in. Look, this is a big panel and there is some reflection I've noticed. There isn't any particularly new anti-reflective coating or technology that this model gets. So, we do see some reflections in the lights. Nothing terrible, but if you do have it near a big window, you might want to keep that in mind. Thankfully, the screen is quite bright as well, so it can help deal with that. But yeah, I do see a few reflections here or there. Well, hello me. Well, on some particular shots, because this screen is so massive, for example, tight headshots or maybe breakfast television, you do get a little bit reminded of just how big a screen you're watching. So big screen, big sound, of course, and it's good that this has Dolby Atmos support, which is sort of the latest home theater surround sound technology, but it kind of works a little bit differently. There are actually, it's a 2.2 speaker configuration, so there are 2 speakers behind the panel and then 2 subwoofers behind the panel, and what happens is then it consolidates all of the Atmos channels into those. So those are 40 watts total output, which is pretty loud, but what I would highly recommend, of course, is having a sound bar, like the Samsung sound bar down here. And what it does is it will support something called Q Symphony, which is Samsung's technology that makes All the speakers in here work with the speakers in the soundbar to add even more channels. There's also object tracking sound. So say an object moves, say these guys on the horses ride from one side of the screen to the other. It'll actually move across, the sound will sort of track it, which creates a pretty cool effect. And lastly, it has eARC and ARC, which is an audio return channel. So if you want to run audio out, you can do that. Or there's also wireless Atmos going to your compatible soundbar too, so you don't have to even fuss with cables. So sound is pretty well covered, I'd have to say, but definitely include a soundbar to get the best experience. What do you need to consider to have such a big screen at home? Well, first off, you'll buy it in a shop and then it will come in a giant box, and I can guarantee you that this box won't fit in your car or SUV, so you'll need to talk to the store about what their delivery options are and find out if there's a fee. At least 2 people will need to move this, if not 4. When you do get it at home, if it's not a service already provided, the box does have some features that help you actually put the stand onto the back of the TV. It actually helps you support the actual panel itself, and then you can attach the stand to it because it is quite tricky. The good thing is that the stand is in the middle. It's not one of the types of stands that actually goes on the far sides, like 2 little feet on the far edges of the panel, because if it was, that would mean that you'll need to have an entertainment console that was long enough to go like right to the edges of the screen. And you can see this one here is not long enough. So the stand is in the middle. There are some cable management options there. It doesn't come with Samsung's One Connect box, which is that separate box that all your cables go to and then it goes to the panel. But there are some grooves in the back of the panel that you can run the cables to into the center and then down through the stand. So it does kind of tidy up nicely with the cables. Now, if you do want to wall mount this, you can, but you'll need to get a special wall mount that supports a 98-inch TV. It will be a VESA compatible mount that will be 400 by 600 dimensions, so that is a bit larger than most TV panels, so make sure that it is a 98-inch compatible wall mount. Also, you probably want to check the weight that it's rated for. So this is about 58 kilograms without the packaging and without the stand. So make sure that you've got a good enough rating on your wall mount. And when you do put it in the wall, just make sure that it is fastened to at least 2 studs. One, obviously I would not recommend that. You don't want to see this thing fall off the wall. So that will keep it nice and secure with 2 studs. So yeah, overall, you just want to make sure it's securely fastened, and there is a decent stand option too. Well, due to the weight, Samsung doesn't offer its slim fit wall mount, which is what presses the TV flushly against the wall for this model. But actually, if you go and you look at how thick this is, it's just over 4 centimeters thick because the back does curve, and you really don't get it flat against the wall anyway, so you're not really missing out on much there. Otherwise, I like the nice slim bezels here. It has a frameless feel. And when you do switch it off, there is an ambient plus mode, which allows you to put on a nice piece of artwork or some family photos. And there's a special sensor that actually senses the ambient lighting and will reduce the image so it looks more like a picture, and even adjust the color too. So this is a cool way of kind of filling up your space when you're not using it as a TV. When setting up your sofa, I'd recommend probably 3 meters away at a minimum. And in terms of viewing angle, because this is actually so wide, if you're setting up chairs or if you got a sofa sort of on an angle, it's actually really good for that, just because you got so much width anyway to see this screen from. I was curious about how much power this sucker will take, because when you turn it on, you probably don't need any lights in your living room because it's so bright. So it is rated for a 430 watts total consumption. That would be probably at peak brightness. It's about 289 typical wattage rated according to Samsung, and it will sort of consume in a year 1,050 kilowatt hours. So you can calculate out how much that's going to cost you in terms of power consumption for the full year. So overall, it's really not going to take as much as something like an old plasma TV, but because of its size, it will consume more power than your standard TV. Samsung is committed to providing a screen for every experience. And I guess that's what's behind having a 98-inch Q80C. They just want to cover all bases. I think I was surprised that it wasn't as overwhelming as I originally imagined for a 98-inch screen. The TV behind me kind of fits into that space. And also, I really don't think, according to Samsung's own figures, that you'll regret getting a 98-inch once you buy it. And who knows what's next. So who is this TV actually for? Well, first off, you're going to have a budget of about $10,000 Australian. We'll put the US prices up on screen. And it's for people who really want engaging cinematic experiences, who love their sport or are really into gaming. So I think it's great for all of these, although with competitive gaming, sometimes the bigger the screen, it actually works against you because it's just too much to see at one time. But look, I was thinking about it more in the context of would you want a projector or would you want a screen like this? But I think this is perfect for the hub of your home, the busy living room. You have this massive screen, maybe you've got a barbecue going on outside, people are walking in and out, they can see the screen from any distance. You know, they're going to have this amazing, say, sporting experience, or if you're, tucking into a movie night, you're just going to have a fantastic, immersive, bring the whole family into the living room kind of fun. So I think for those purposes, it's fantastic. Where you might want a digital projector is if you have a home theater, say maybe down in the basement, and you can control all of the lighting conditions, because with a projector, you really do need to do that. And that's why I think this really does have a great place in a big family living room, who are people who really want to watch all of that live action or great movies on the screen. So it is a good fit, and you know what? It really actually does deliver in terms of that 98-inch impact, but the screen quality is also quite good. There are some competitors in this space that don't offer as many features as what you get with this screen, and having it as a quantum dot screen also really helps. So really, I'm impressed, and you know what? It's not so bad to have your mind blown every once in a while. Well, thanks for joining me for this first look at Samsung's Q80C 98-inch 4K smart TV. And I'd love to know what you think about this. Is this something that you're willing to pay $10K for? Would you put it in your living room? Would you want it in the living room? So don't hesitate to like, subscribe, leave that comment. I'm Val Quinn, and I'll catch you in the next one.